Hi, year 9. Go ahead and set up your paper with 3I using equations to solve problems. And the way we're going to begin these notes is just by walking through an example together. So the first example comes from your textbook. It's number 6, so you don't have to write down the whole thing. But let's highlight some words together. And you can highlight them in your textbook if you'd like to. So pause here and go get your textbook if you don't have it in front of you. It says Toby rented a car for a total cost of $290. As soon as I see the word total and cost, I'm going to underline that part because I think I might need to use that later on. The rental company charged $40 per day. Again, I'm going to underline this part because I think that's an important part that I might need to use later on. Plus, keyword plus means I might have more to come. Hiring a fee of $50. So Toby rents a car. He pays $290 a day. The rental company charges him $40 every day, plus they charge him additional $50 just for the hiring fee. So that means depending on how many days he hires the car for, he might be paying a little bit more money. So the very first part of this question says to define a variable, or per numeral, for the number of days that Toby rented the car. So I think that it makes sense to use D for days. So every time that I write the letter D, I'm going to be meaning how many days Toby rented the car for. Second part says write an equation in terms of your per numeral in part A to represent the actual problem. So if I go back to the key parts of this question, it says that you have a total cost. So I have the total cost, and that's equal to the rental company charges him $40 per day, and then plus, I'm going to put a big plus sign there, a hiring fee of $50. So he only actually spends the $50 once, but depending on how many days he actually rents the car for, he might spend $40 additional for every one of those days. So my equation is going to be using the values from the word problem. So my total cost, they've told me, is $290. $40 per day. Whenever you see that per, that means that $40 per day means I have $40 for every D number of days. So really I'm doing 40 times D, or 40D. And then plus the hiring fee of $50. So that is a very legitimate equation and a good representation of the question. Part C is asking me to solve the equation to find the unknown value. My only unknown value is this amount of days. So if I take away the dollar signs and I write it out as 290 equals 40D plus 50, it looks like a lot of the other equations that we've been solving over the last few days. It might even look more familiar if I switch the sides and I put 40D plus 50 equals 290, so that my per numeral is on the left-hand side. So remember, you can always have that option to switch where your per numeral is written. So it's asking me now to start to solve. Key word here, solve the equation. So I know when I solve, I'm thinking of my steps, and we draw the arrows to remind us of what our steps are. So if I am multiplying by 40 and adding 50, I'm going to begin by taking away the 50. That will leave me with 40 days, or 40D, is equal to, and then I also have to do 290 minus 50, so I'm left with 240. My second step is to get rid of the coefficient. Remember, to get rid of coefficients, we divide by the 40, and therefore, I have now reduced my answer down to D is equal to, and then 240 divided by 40 is going to give us 6. Okay? So I actually know that he used the car, Toby rented the car for 6 days in order to spend a total amount of $290. So let's look at our last part of this question. Part D. It says, for how many days did Toby rent the car? Well, I just realized exactly what the answer to that question is. Since I set up an equation and I solved it and I found out that D is equal to 6, that means that Toby rented the car for 6 days. Now there are a lot of questions, or a lot of steps that go into a question like this. So we have a couple steps that we can write down to identify exactly how we would go through a question like this. And the first one is always to read the question carefully, okay? So write down your steps so that you guys don't forget. Read the question carefully. Usually you'll be prompted, but a lot of times your second step is going to be to define a pronumeral. So if you're not prompted, try to define a pronumeral to represent the unknown part of the question. Highlight any key information when you're reading it. So we did that right off the bat. We did that with the blue pen. Step 4, write an equation to represent the problem. This one we were prompted to do. The question asked us to do that. And then you're going to solve the equation and check your answer to make sure it makes sense. Okay? So if you check your answer to make sure it makes sense, if it does make sense, then go ahead and write your answer using words so that you know for sure what you just found. So if you go back to the question that we did together, we read the question, we underlined our keywords, we identified a pronumeral for the amount of days, we set up an equation, we solved the equation, and then we checked if that made sense, and we looked back and we said, okay, 6 days, $40 a day, right? And then we added the $50 on, that makes sense. So I wrote it out as a sentence. Toby actually rented the car for 6 days. So before you guys put away your work tonight, go ahead and try number 9, also from your textbook. Try it on your own and try to at least set up what you think those 7 steps might look like. And we'll start with this question when we get to class next time.